What's going on, everybody? We are ready to kick the tires, light the fires. This is the first time I believe we have had two shows in a week in a very, very long time. I go live, I rant, I bitch, and complain about things. This time, we're actually going to have a little bit of a show. We've got three people on the screen in just about 20 seconds because I see him down below. Granted, I don't see his image yet. Rocky Stucci is joining us. You know, Casey. Lucas Thompson, it has been a minute. And by a minute, I mean it's been a fortnight since we've seen you. Obviously, most people that follow us probably know you as Kaylee's husband. No offense. Just like Joe is, the doctor's husband, whatever. Lucas, introduce yourself, my man.
Hey, Russo, thanks for having me on here. Casey, nice to be with you again. I am Lucas, the American populist, Thompson, aka Kaylee's husband. Yeah, so it's been a while. Most of the folks that have seen me before kind of know a little bit about me, but the long and short of it is I guess I might be the resident legal expert. So sometimes I bring a little bit of a different perspective, sometimes a legal or constitutional perspective, and I'm just glad I can be here with you guys tonight, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, the reason you were invited is because you were being a dick to me in my comments. I'm just kidding. You weren't that being a dick. And honestly, I actually see it more your way than I did before. And I said that I changed my stance just before the debate, like within 24 hours of the debate. I was like, you know what? Looking at what's going on, I firmly believe Trump, which Kayleigh McEnany, by the way, disagrees with this. I firmly believe Trump made a good decision not being in this first debate, possibly even the next debate. There is this time and a place, and we'll talk about it, whether or not we think he should be on the debate. So what we're doing tonight, we are doing a quick show. This should be 30 minutes from the point we really get talking. 30 minutes talking about our review of the debate. Shut up, Casey. 30 minutes talking about our review of the debate and the Tucker Carlson Trump interview, all of the above. What did we just say? 200 and how many million impressions at this point?
240 million. Man.
240 million. Rocky, I see. Why is it? It's you're spinning. You got a spinning wheel of death. It's like bringing Anthony on. It's like bringing me on before I had internet. What's that?
Yeah, it's a Mac.
He doesn't have. It's not the Mac. It's his house is slow. Hey, Rocky, you know what you could do? You could join us on your phone and just do. You don't need to have the whole setup. Just look like Lucas, just like this. See, you can have this completely, thing going on. All right. We're going to go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and get started with the show. Hopefully Rocky's computer works. We'll see what happens. Kick the tires, light the fires. Let's go. That's right. Special Thirsty Thursday edition. Truth will set you free. Rocky's going to be joining us in a second. We've got Casey. We've got me. We're talking about the first GOP debate, and we got special guest Lucas Thompson. I think everybody also wants to know, Lucas, no offense to you. They don't care about you. They want to know how Kayleigh's doing. How's everything going on, not just in your world, like in your world. How's Kayleigh? How's the family? How's all that?
Everybody's doing really well. Kayleigh is she's working full time, which is something she hadn't really done for 10 years while she was raising all these munchkins that I have in this house.
Whoa, they're sexist. Being full time, that is working full time. If there's any Democrats and snowflakes watching, I apologize for the misogyny on this guy right here.
Beta.
That's a fair correction. Good job. Good job. No, but she sends her love. She does still do a little bit of PTP stuff. She'll post a few things when a news story is really important to her. So you can still catch her on Facebook. She's got a PTP Kayleigh page now. Feel free to jump on there and follow her on there. And she always keeps up with you guys. She gets lots of messages. I get lots of messages. We respond to all of them. You guys know that. So we'll be popping in and out, especially we get closer to next November. And if things ever do finally calm down a little bit, we might be on here a little bit more live. So
smart. Life is, I've noticed the better life goes, typically the less you want to deal with politics. The more life is going bad, you're like, screw it. Let's talk about another dumpster fire.
Right.
Why not?
Good point.
Do you guys still talk to Blake a decent amount?
All the time. Blake's my boy. I love Blake. Blake and Nick down in Alabama now, and we talk to them all the time. They're the same folks that Blake is the same guy you guys remember. He still gets as frustrated about a lot of this crap as the rest of us, and he's pulling in his own circles, but he's still pushing in the right direction. So
love it. And I know Nick once in a while like dabbles on my Facebook and like picks at me for like my homoerotic side. I think Nick is hilarious. So
yeah.
All right, let's get this started. I'm going to put these up real quick. Again, if you like the gear Casey's wearing, I'm wearing, they both suck, which I think is fitting after, where we are, especially with the GOP. The debate, it was fun, but let's be clear, we still don't have like the world's strongest potential for government. So that's where you're going to find the gear, awakenotwokestore.com, awake for 15% off. If you like any of the supplements we use with Dr. Artist, the Dr. Artist Show, which he'll be speaking at Clay Clark Reimagined Tour tomorrow, which I'll be flying out to Vegas for that. TheDrArtistShow.com, BFD at checkout for 10% off. And last but not least, I'm just going to let this run. That's if you really want to give us something, which I don't expect at all. But what I would like is we have a few people watching. We still can't have our YouTube. Please at least hit the like and the hearts button. And if you have balls, share this. All right. Lucas, you went off on me. You didn't really go off. You gently went off on me because I was saying Trump needs to debate. Trump has to debate. Why did you feel Trump did not need to be a part of the debate?
Okay, so first of all, what's the number one thing we all like about Donald Trump? It's that he does what he says he's going to do. He did what he said he would do. We've been able to trust him. There have been several times where the media had reported that he was about to screw us, and he came out by 3:00 that afternoon and said, no, you got bad reporting, and he'd fire his chief of staff, whatever he needed to do, because he was going to do everything he could to prevent us getting screwed. Now, he wasn't perfect. Nobody is. But the number one goal of a debate ought to be for people to be able to get out there and talk about how they're different from the rest of the folks on stage. We don't need that from Trump necessarily. There's going to come a time where we need to see the difference between him and whoever the actual second front runner is, or the second runner, whatever you call it. And that time was not this first debate. There's 4 or 5 folks that are barely aggregating 5 points worth of support. Why would he need to be on the stage sharing stage time with folks like that are going to do nothing but sit there and interview for a job on MSNBC? That was my position. I still feel like doing, town hall type forums, more interviews, but with people that don't necessarily like him, as long as he's got firm rules on editing and everything like that. Those are the things I'd like to see him doing right now. And then maybe as the field thins, we get down to maybe DeSantis and Vivek, then maybe we do a 3-person debate, and they can try to show us or explain to us why they somehow should be trusted more than the guy who we already saw do it for 4 years.
I love that people still think he's going to jail. That's hilarious. It's a whole new world of derangement. Casey, what's your and I changed my belief. Ooh, we got a little feedback. Who's that? Is it you? Yeah, check. I had a belief that I'm like, he needs to debate. And, I saw Lucas's comment, saw a couple other people. Matt Locke actually did a great drunk show last night. It came out this morning. It was pretty funny talking about the debate. But fact is, you guys are right. Trump did not need to be there in any way, shape, or form. Actually, it was better for the Republican Party that he wasn't, because then we got to actually hear them at least attempt to talk about issues. And I think there were some really solid things that happened last night that came out of it. Vivek was, I kept calling him Vivek. Apparently it's Vivek. Vivek was incredibly, it's like, honestly, if it was Vivek, I think he would be doing better. Vivek is an easier name for corn-fed people from Iowa. Vivek? What is Vivek?
So when Vivek was on Tim Pool, he said it's Vivek like cake. And Tim Pool has repeated that over and over and over. So just get that in your head. Vivek like cake. There you go.
So Rocky's still having issues with his internet. So anyways, if he gets on, he gets on. So the big thing that I realized is last night we got to see some stuff. There was some successes and some failures. And I'm going to share a video once we get going because Vivek, to me, has been doing a great job. And I keep wondering why people call him deep state and why they're, the Soros stuff. Anomaly had a pretty good video earlier that finally, because I know that Bobby Sauce cannot stand Vivek. And I was like, you know what? I want to know why. And he actually finally properly explained it with a little bit of the receipts, why he's imperfect. This is why I typically keep the cat out of the damn room. But this is going to be a situation. So anywho, first off, you go ahead, Casey. Overall, what did you think? What did you think was better? Are you fucking with me right now? Seriously? What did you think was better in terms of the quality of content? We've all watched all of them. Do you think it was the debate or do you think it was the Tucker Carlson interview?
I think there's pros and cons to both. I can't say one, lack of better terms, trumped another. I will say the debate actually had a good content, and I do agree, like, Trump doesn't need to be there. The part that I'm picking on Trump about debating is he said in his truth, whatever you call that post garbage on True Social, is he will not do it until the primaries. No, you need to be in there before the primaries. That is my line, is you do not deserve the GOP nomination without debating before then.
At least at one point.
Yes. And so when it comes to the debates, I like the way it went last night. Yeah, it wasn't focused on Trump, which I didn't think it was going to be anyways. It would have been mentioned. But overall, the debate went fantastic. Chris Christie looked like an idiot. Asia Hutchinson, why are you there? And then you look at Nikki Haley. It's like, yeah, you're Nikki Haley. No surprise. But overall, the debates went good. When it Tucker and Trump, I think that was a little bit weak. It was
all softballs, and Tucker can do better than that. So here's what I said. Trump won the night before I even watched the Trump interview because he has 230 million impressions. It's showing about 16 million. What we believe that figure is 16 million people watched the predominance of the video. That's absolutely absurd. I mean, these are numbers that destroy Super Bowls, for God's sakes. You're about to get kicked out of this room. Never are you allowed to be in here. Now the cat is behind the screen right now, pulling off pins. Are you a Democrat? You're a
it's friends with your neighbor cow.
Democrat. No, the cow's gone tomorrow. If anybody wants the update on that. So by the way, yes, we actually talked about this before we went on air. It died unexpectedly. I know, shocking. So here's some of my takeaways, and I've lost focus because of a friggin' pussy. It's cat. Okay, too many puns in one place. So there's a couple things that went to just lead off how I believe. The debate, Vivek won. I think that goes without saying. Chris Christie, I hope, ended his career there. I hope Vivek ended Chris Christie's political career in the Republican sphere. He's going to have a great job on TV someday. They're going to sit him up like Humpty Dumpty and put him on the end like Whoopi Goldberg at one point, and that's what he's going to do. Now, there was a poll that showed that they thought Chris Christie did second best. It was an ultra old school Republican poll. I saw it posted on Josh Firestein's page. Let me see who did it. That to me was absolutely shocking that there was an actual poll that listed this. We all know that polls are garbage, but let me go ahead and see who it was. There it is. It was a poll from the Drudge poll. Drudge poll said who won the first Republican debate. Ramaswamy was at 32% and 4,604 votes. Chris Christie 23%, Nikki Haley 16, and DeSantis 16. I can't believe that. I don't know what world anybody thought that Chris Christie did that good. Casey?
Well, I don't trust any polls, so it doesn't matter. Like when it comes to those polls, I can write automation, I can write code to be able to go in and vote a million times and fake it. And so I don't like the polls when it comes to things like that. And well, in general, you got to take it with a grain of salt. And that's probably all this is that Drudge report was shared out by Chris Christie's campaign, and a bunch of his people voted on it when other people didn't share it. And that's probably how it got there. You look on Twitter at the other polls going around, Chris Christie doesn't even show up. The people don't even put him on the poll.
No. And if he got on a poll, the poll would break. So, anyways, a couple different things. Do you think now we've got Burgum? Do you believe that Burgum am I pronouncing that right? The North Dakota guy. I don't think he did that bad. He didn't really talk much. He's got no purpose. He essentially gamed the system in order to get there. I have a conspiracy theory that the injury to his ankle was staged. That's the only way he got any press leading into the event. I think that it's way too good for some guy to be in a walking cast. I'm throwing this out there. There's no evidence, there's no proof, there's no truth to this, but he was getting zero attention except for the people that he had to pay with $20 gift cards to give him donations in order to reach the threshold. I think it was staged personally. Do you think that's possible, Lucas?
Oh, for sure. I mean, here. Does it matter? I mean,
it doesn't.
in a month or two, they'll be gone, and most of the people that aren't even following this stuff yet won't even ever know he ran. I mean, he's going to be, along with Asa, or Ada, as Trump calls him, Asa Hutchinson is going to be long gone. Nobody will care. You know, Chris Christie. See, normally in most cycles, the early debate is about an interview for one of two things: either an interview for some left-wing TV show, so they can be the guy who ran for the Republican nomination, yep, or for something in the eventual winner's cabinet or the VP, something like that. It's usually an interview for most of the people on that stage. In this case, because Trump's so far ahead and wasn't even there, everyone there was there for an interview except Ron DeSantis and Vivek Ramaswamy. And that's probably the way that it'll be for the next debate as well. There'll be a couple that'll drop out, then there'll be more. By the time we get to New Hampshire and Iowa, you know, we'll be down to 4 or 5 people total, including Donald Trump. And at that point, that's when most people start to pay attention. So Burgum, you know, even Chris Christie and Nikki Haley. You know, and the other thing is, we're not talking about Tim Scott, who generally speaking is very well liked in most conservative circles. I think he even spoke at Trump's RNC rally at one point. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to like him too, but he's an also ran. I mean, most of these folks are just, they're not relevant. There's nothing about them that's going to make them relevant. And it's going to come down to a 3-person race. And I've seen a lot of people that their basic complaints are the reason why, if I were Donald Trump, I wouldn't have done this debate. Ron DeSantis, people are like, well, he didn't do anything big enough to gain support. I want to say, dumbass, did you not know that he's been governor for like 6 years? He has enough of a record now that he doesn't have to go out there and swing from the chandelier and scream at the top of his lungs. The man can talk about his record. And there's a lot of things about his record I really, really like. Vivek, on the other hand, is running completely on what you and I would be running on. This is what we think. This is what we would do. It's all lip service. It sounds good, but so does a lot of stuff. So again, it's one of these things where I really like what he's saying, but he's got to prove something to me. Let me explain it this way. In the reverse, Donald Trump in 2015, from 2015 to basically May of 2016, I hated the man. I didn't want anything to do with him. I couldn't trust him. I said plenty of times, he's too close with the Democrats in New York. I can't trust him. I don't want anything to do with him. He's uncouth. He's coarse. He's not a Christian. There's a lot of things I didn't like about Donald Trump. And then he released the list of people he would nominate to the Supreme Court, the list that he would use to nominate to the Supreme Court. And I said, oh, this is a serious guy. He didn't have to tell me he was a serious guy. I knew from what he was doing, he was a serious guy. Then, of course, as we know, he lived up to what he promised. So again, I could be completely wrong. Vivek could say all the right things, become president, and be the second coming of George W. Bush. There's no way for me to know. Remember when Bush went to the Christian Coalition and said, I'm one of you? And everybody was all happy. And we said, finally, we can vote for this guy because he's not like his dad. How do you feel about that now?
Yeah.
Now, you guys may not be old enough to remember that, but I do.
I do.
And I can tell you that I want to see some stuff before I'm willing to pull the trigger, so to speak, or push the button for whomever it is that I'm going to put my support behind.
Yeah.
Sure.
Go ahead, Case.
To challenge that a little bit, just to get your insight, because Vivek did sue the DOJ on practically behalf of Donald Trump because they're not responding to Vivek's requests of documents, and so he's like, "You have to reply." Now he's subpoenaing them to court. Is that not an action that should be acknowledged? Because he could just back away and be like, "That's my opponent, ream him," right? That gained a lot of credit in my book. What about you?
Oh, for sure. And that's not to say he hasn't done anything. I mean, he just hasn't done anything as a governing person. Anything that's gonna hang with him for his whole life and define him as a politician for the rest of his career. That's all I really mean. I mean, at the end of the day, like I've said on my Facebook 100 times, I really like Ron DeSantis, but I would still take Donald Trump. I really like Vivek. I'd still take Donald Trump. What I'd really like to see, you guys, have you seen the Avengers Endgame, the second half, the second half of the final part, the Endgame? Okay, at the end, when Captain America is about to just finally succumb to Thanos, all of a sudden he hears in his mic, somebody that's coming back from the snap, and all of a sudden behind him you've got 100 of these superheroes ready to pick him up, finally fight back and beat Thanos. And it's like this wonderful moment. Professional wrestling used to do the same thing. They'd have one of the baby faces getting pummeled by 10 heels, and then all the other baby faces, the good guys, would come in from the locker room and save the day, right? It didn't happen often, but it happened every now and then. And that feeling you get in your heart when that happens.
Avatar did that too.
Right. Yeah. So my point is, I don't know what that's called in literary lingo, but I've always called it an assembly, because I don't know what else to call it. So I've told people when I explain it, I call it an assembly. That is what we need sometime late in this cycle before Donald Trump walks away with everything, is we need Vivek and Ron to come in at the, maybe with a commercial, maybe on the debate stage at the end, and say, guys, here's the deal. We gave you everything we got. This man right here is going to win our nomination, and he has our 100% support. Whether he puts us as vice president, in the cabinet, anything else, he's the man to put America back on track. He has our support, and I'd love to see 10 of them show up and do the same thing. People that ran, Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, whether they like him or not. I'd like to see that happen.
Night them ask the question, because in order to be in the debate, they had to sign the paper saying they'd support. That was that moment was, so I actually thought DeSantis was a little bit uncomfortable in the beginning. He was still a little too Pence-like for me, but the rest of the night, I think he did very, very well. He was the leader. He led a lot of the speaking. Him and Vivek knew their roles, and they did a great job at it. But when the question was asked, would you support Donald Trump? And he had a beta moment, and DeSantis had to look to see what other people said and then raise his hand. That was a moment that literally can lose a president or lose a campaign. Like that right there to me is gonna. And I didn't see it as much as I thought last night. I saw it today where people were laying it on him pretty hard. Like that was the epitome of, A, you're way too against Donald Trump in your head right now, and B, you're a little chicken shit. And it was just Trump, I know, is going to just feed off of that right there. So I think his worst moment of the night was that.
So in the green room before the show, we talked about this, and I said, when we get live, I want us all to give our opinion as to why we think Ron DeSantis had that difficulty on the stage last night. Who wants to go first? All right, I'll go first, and you guys can say what you think after this. Here's my opinion, and I see this a lot. I'm in manufacturing. I do a lot of problem solving, a lot of continuous improvement. I run a plant, a lot of that kind of stuff. And here's something that I know, and I think it was written about in a book about how to take a good business to a great business. First who, then what? In everything, when you want to go from, really good to great, you have to have the right people around you. First who, then what? And I think where Ron has gotten himself in a bind is he didn't pick the right who's. He picked a bunch of people that are the folks that everybody told him he should pick, that have told him all kinds of different stuff. And he's over here trying to put a square peg in a round hole. Here's how I know that. He wrote a book, and I read it. I've actually read it almost twice now. He admires Donald Trump greatly for a lot of different reasons. Number one. Number two, he knows that he would govern a lot like Donald Trump. So he's over here sitting here thinking, I know that everybody, for me to win, I've got to figure out a way to take Trump's support away from him. But in all honesty, I'm not there. And I think that's why he waited so long to announce, because I think he's really battling himself on how exactly he is truly different than Donald Trump without using the words speak and better.
Yeah. I think personally, I think some of the uncomfortability is he's just not, I don't think he's never been a phenomenal debater. I don't think his brain moves as fast as Vivek. I don't think it moves as fast as even a 70 whatever year old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old Trump. I don't think he's slow by any means, but I think that in that setting, he's uncomfortable. He's over practiced. I think that they probably ran this. Oh, you saw that. That's the intro that was awkward to me. The hand raise thing was just a huge calculation mistake and a delay. But like in the beginning, when they're like Ron DeSantis, and he's like he had this look on his face. I make you bet they had practiced how to smile when they do the intro 15 times, and you saw it. There was a lack of natural, just like, Ron, you know what you're talking about. Just go. These are the things you need to, like you said, they've probably hired the wrong people, and he just did not. He's become, and I said it before, I said he's got to distinguish himself between a Mike Pence style politician and himself, and more of a Trump style. And in the end, he found a little bit, he started pushing towards a Trump, but he still failed at really truly distinguishing that middle ground that makes him the unifier that Trump may not be. Casey?
Yeah, I said it backstage that I blame his campaign. I really do. I think his campaign is awful for him. I think they must have went and was like, hey, who's the best campaign manager or whoever that's been doing this for so long? They're going to be able to help us. They went back to like this old school politics mentality. You can't do that anymore. Politics is evolving, and you have to adapt to new technology. Look what RFK and look what Vivek is doing. They're showing up on podcasts that people don't even go to. Like DeSantis is just doing old school politics. And I think that's where he's insecure, is he is going down a path that's traditional, but I don't think is going to work anymore. And so he's insecure when he gets onto that stage. I know he would support Trump being the nominee, but his reaction to that question was pathetic. Like I sent you that text. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like what in the world? And so overall, I agree with you, Lucas. I like the way you put it, that the way he picked the people around him. I just said his campaign, but yeah, I think that is exactly the scenario.
And he can fix all that, but not for this campaign cycle. The reality is, at this point, he needs to begin to figure out the right way to wrap all this up. He needs to figure out a good timeline. He needs to save face, and Trump needs to let him. That's a key. I mean, Trump has called him Ron DeSanctimonious or whatever. And Trump needs to allow him to save face, because there's a lot of us out here that are like, I like three people right now. The triumvirate at some point needs to be Trump, Vivek, and Ron. And they have different skills and different they do different things for me. And we need that strength to beat the Democrat machine that they've got going, because it's stronger than most of us want to admit.
Yeah. So I'm going to go, because I think Vivek, we're going to spend some time on at the end. That's how we're going to end the show. But some things that I make sure I want to cover. My opinion, Nikki Haley, I actually think she did very well in a lot of ways. I found it very odd that her whole neocon stance on Ukraine got so many cheers in that room. That showed that it was like an old school Fox audience. Then there was her pro-woman comment that is great for a general election, where she was like, you know, what they say, you have the men do this, and this is why you have the women get things done. That's a general election comment, because right now you're a woman in the Republican race. You should not be alienating men. There was not a if you heard the crowd all night, loud men, women, all both. When she did that, it was a bunch of yelling and cackles, and I guarantee their husbands and their guys that are sitting in there like, yeah, fuck you. So I mean I think that was a very poorly done statement. I found it odd that she got the cheers for the people watching at home and her pro-Ukraine stance. They weren't a fan. I know that Vivek didn't quite get to snap back on that one. Vivek, destroyed Chris Christie on so many different levels. DeSantis, let's see, Pence being out of touch was huge. Him talking to Vivek about the fact that our country is full of hardworking, religious. He's like, you're delusional. Our country is still great. Our country is this. Not acknowledging that there is a problem is a problem, because he lives in this apparent bubble that he thinks that everything is all well and good. Bro, it's not. Just because you live in an all upper class community that is Republican and conservative, that's not our country anymore. And that showed how out of touch he was. And then, okay, so the two big things one big thing, and then we'll talk about Trump and then Vivek, and we'll be done. So the abortion topic was my biggest fear going in. I thought that if anybody went too hard, if the chain went where it got too pro-life, all of this was going to be content in the general election that was going to hurt. Nikki Haley being the first person to answer the question, and her comments, I think, were key that set the tone on keeping it as, we're all pro-life people, but there does need to be some kind of freedom and rational thought in the middle. So I thought it was very well done. The people that went the ultra religious route were, I think, Asia, and I know Pence did. Besides that, again, because my issue with abortion, a lot of people know on this, I think our country should be a pro-choice stance just based on the state, and it should be a state decision. If the state wants to go fully pro-life, that's great. But we were celebrating, and I think Burgum said this, we were celebrating that it got sent back to the states because that's the constitutional way to do it. And then 7 days later, Lindsey Graham's trying to draw up legislation to make it federal. And I'm like, wow. You literally are doing exactly what they're afraid of. And that galvanizes the center moderates in this country that are very pro-choice. So I do think everybody answered the question very well. DeSantis and Nikki Haley, they kept it pretty central. To me, this is a huge general election topic. So what do you guys think about the way they handled the abortion question?
Well, I'll say that I agree with you 100%. We've been begging for the Supreme Court to take a case that would finally return this substantive rights issue to the states where it belongs. I was floored. I remember I was driving home when I heard that Lindsey Graham was going to, attempt some federal legislation very soon after the opinion came out. I was like, how is there nobody that is explaining to this guy that this is a mistake, like a humongous mistake?
I don't think it was a mistake. I think that was targeted to, because I think that people can argue me. I know the Bryson Grays of the world will argue me. That topic right there destroyed the red wave. You take away that whole fight for the ultra right movement. First off, just the Roe versus Wade timing, and add in Lindsey Graham creating fear and doubt single-handedly, to me, was the biggest reason the red wave didn't happen. Sorry, you can finish.
Yeah, if you guys ever see my Facebook, you're going to know, you'll see that one of the things I hate more than anything is when somebody involves themselves in the marketplace of ideas and tries to use coercion. When they try to tell me, you can't think that, you're not going to be able to do that, I'm not going to let you do that, that's when I flare up like none other. Because to me, the social compact, ordered liberty, is a give and take where we have to have agreement. So there is nothing more important in the world than winning hearts and minds on this issue. It's vital that this is a state's issue because it's not in the Constitution. The Constitution cannot decide on itself the difference between the personhood rights of an unborn human and the mother carrying it, period. It's not set up to do that. And so what did it do? It gave those rights back to the states. for the states to go out and decide based on what its citizenry believes what they want to do with the ultimate issue. And the way that you win on this abortion issue is you have to spend the time and money and effort to go out and win hearts and minds. And you do not do that by telling them, I'm going to force you to do what I want through this piece of legislation. Period.
Yeah. Agreed. Casey?
That's my view.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. There's nothing else to follow up other than it's not in the Constitution. Power resides with the states. That's where the decision should be made. Period. Point blank.
For those of you all watching right now live, it appears as though Donald Trump has surrendered in Atlanta. Supposed to surrender around 7 o'clock for his 4th criminal case. So he is now at the Fulton County Jail, and I'm sure he'll be posting the $200,000 bond. Or what does that mean? He's got to pay 20 grand or something. Anyways,
percent usually.
Breaking news. Anywho, what was the other? So abortion topic, and then let's talk about Trump's actual interview with Tucker. To give my personal belief, I didn't expect a ton, and I actually feel like once I watched it, I got less than I was hoping for. The conversation was actually a little bit dry. There was some fun, like typical Trump funny moments. The one overriding theme that's positive is, as usual, if anybody with the brain can see that he is incredibly sharp compared to any other 50-year-old. He's still really sharp. He's a sharp guy. He's business savvy. He's got his shit together. He destroys Joe Biden on a lot of different levels. He actually wasn't as mean about other people in this one. That's another positive. That's good. But I think, as usual, there was nothing about pharmaceuticals. There was nothing about, and Tucker has been outright saying he didn't get the vaccine. He hates all of it. He was the guy that could have asked, and I knew he wouldn't, and he didn't. So to me, we didn't get the answers we wanted about Operation Warp Speed, about his ties to pharma, his celebrating pharma, all those different things. Second biggest donation of pharmaceutical money behind Joe Biden in the last election was Donald Trump. We didn't get any of those answers that I know a lot of the following and base, that even the ones that are religious about Donald Trump, one answered, and they didn't get it. I think there was one moment, and then I'll be done. There was one moment when it was a weird exchange, and Rolling Stone actually said it was an awkward and very odd conversation because they're going to obviously blow it up. But there was one part that I was like, what the hell is he talking about? When he went on and on about the lack of water flow and how he deregulated it. He actually never even used the word deregulated, which would have made it make more sense, but that's what he meant. He was talking about how there's these faucets and you turn the water on, nothing comes out. You got the washer and dryers. Nothing comes out. And it went on for about a minute before he actually explained what he meant, that it wasn't that much water. It's one of those moments that the left and the left-wing media will take and go, your boy's lost it. He's just as bad as Joe Biden. And then he was talking about the regulators. And then he was talking about electric cars in a way that they have to charge every 100 miles, which is out of touch. You could dislike electric cars. I agree. There's some bad parts. And he had a good joke to start. But then to not understand that most people can't drive for about 4 hours on their electric cars these days showed a little bit of being out of touch with the current system. And I thought there was some mistakes that he made during that interview. And it also was a softball interview. So I think as a whole, I want to see him get challenged a little bit more. Lucas, I know, is going to say, the town halls where he will get grilled by the CNNs and MSNBCs of the world. Problem is, they're still not going to ask the damn vaccine question because they can't, because that's their funding. So I hope that things change and we see a general election and he comes out and talks about it. That would be a game changer for me, because we're going to end with Vivek, and you're going to see why I don't know if I'm 100% dead set on him. And I don't think I'm going to have the chance to vote for who I really want to, which is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So there's a chance that if Trump could answer to Warp Speed, I would still vote for Trump at this point, even in the primary. So anyways, what do you guys think of the Trump interview?
So I'll go first. I think when it comes to the interview, it was good. They covered some good content. They really did. They covered some good stuff. It's not the questions I want to see asked, which is where I see this was it fell short. It was a lot more hype than it really was a good debate that you would want to see a president go through or a president-elect go through. when it comes to some of the questions, you already said it was all softball. He did address some of the good things that I liked. Like, for example, when he started talking about Pence and was really pressured on, does the vice president have that power? They really talked about it, and they said he brought his lawyer. Pence brought his lawyer in the room, and all of that stuff. And that Pence's lawyer was saying no. Trump's lawyers were saying yes. My stance is, if he didn't have that power, why did we change the law after the fact when Biden was president? So clearly there was something there. So Trump is right in that scenario, and
that was a good part of the interview.
And overall, I think it was decent. It should have been better. I wanted to see more of the questions, but this is what I expected out of Tucker and Trump. They're good friends. He's not going to challenge him a whole lot.
It's the same as the Candace Owens interview was, where it's like, oh, get him, get the answer, oh, never mind, it's not gonna happen. I also forgot about one other part when he talked about modern day heating in homes. It's like this is the part where him being a billionaire, he doesn't quite get real life homes. He's like, they're not allowed to use modern day, and he's talking about the smart homes. So there was some stuff that was like old white man issues. But Lucas, what was your thoughts?
So he's talking about deregulation. I mean, it's really not that difficult for him. What he needs to do is, instead of getting in the weeds of deregulation, he needs to say, I'm going to get government out of your life. You know, I'm not going to tell you how many gallons you can flush through your toilet. I'm not going to tell you that you have to use low flow shower heads. I'm going to get government out of your life. I started that process, and I'm going to continue it. I think he slashed 10,000 pages from the Federal Register in the first 100 days of office. That's huge. As a former lawyer, I can tell you that that's no mean feat. And on the same note, let me talk a little bit about these indictments. I've read all of them, and I can tell you that they all kind of hinge on the same thing, that he somehow knowingly lied to the American people and to Congress, and furthered this conspiracy to overturn a lawful election, knowing full well the whole time that he was lying, and so on and so forth. It's all BS. It's all designed to do nothing except exactly what happened to Bob McDonnell, that Jack Smith was involved in back then, which is get him out of the election or get him to lose. It's all about hurting Donald Trump. It's not about any kind of sense of justice. And I think when it's all said and done, even if he's convicted in Washington, D.C., just like Bob McDonnell, the Supreme Court will overturn it. And then I think somebody needs to go after Jack Smith's law license. What really ticks me off is that nobody does that. Fannie Willis, the lady from St. Louis, some of these prosecutors down in Florida. There's got to be some sympathetic disciplinary administrators down in Florida that if these prosecutors aren't good enough to be in their job and the governor's taking them out of their job, why is nobody taking their law license? They shouldn't be practicing. In fact, Kevin Kleinsmith, who lied as an FBI lawyer, lied as a DOJ lawyer, lied to a court, was practicing law within a year. Come on. So, but that's for another day.
So real quick, Lucas, you brought up something about, one of the things he said from the litigation standpoint, he didn't even, I think it was very strategic. He brought up how the lawyers and certain different people had some people said, one lawyer said one thing, one lawyer said another. I think that they're going to use that in some of his cases, because they're accusing him of saying that he knew. And all these lawyers, especially the Georgia case, the 19 different indictments, a lot of them they're trying to say that everybody told him that he lost, but he didn't listen. So for him to cast a shadow of doubt saying some lawyers feel one way, talking about the Mike Pence situation, some lawyers felt another way. I think that was a key moment that he had to get out at one point during the show, and I think that was very strategic.
And he's gonna be able to explain that in further detail just by pointing to the case in Pennsylvania, pointing to the case in Michigan, the case in Wisconsin, where those state Supreme Courts literally said, we got this wrong. Our state got this wrong. We didn't follow our own laws when we set up these election rules based on this COVID fiasco. They admitted they got it wrong, but it was after the fact. So just on that alone, you could say for those three states, if nothing else, they got it wrong enough that it could have cost Donald Trump an election, period. I mean, there's plenty of reasons why, and what they've all tried to do is conflate two different issues. The election process issues that were clearly screwed up because of COVID and because Democrats took advantage of COVID to make them screwed up. And then there's substantive issues that were related to actual incidents, like up in Antrim County in Michigan and some of these other areas where there was clearly something wrong with the voting electronics. Whether you could do anything about that or not, who will ever know? But the fact that somebody could say he didn't think that something was wrong, he knew it was all on the up and up and lied about it anyway, is insane.
Yeah.
But that's what the Democrats do. They gaslight.
Oh yeah.
So what Tucker and Rush Limbaugh, if he was alive, and Dan Bongino, and what these folks are going to do whenever they have Donald Trump on their show, and it's not to kiss his ass, because none of them need to do that right now. The reason that they're doing what they're doing the way that they're doing it is because it's his only opportunity to get through the gaslighting and actually talk about his record in the way that it really happened. I mean, he doesn't have the time to come on all of our shows, and he'd have to be on 10,000 of them to get to the same reach that Tucker's got. So he goes on Tucker. It gives him an opportunity to sift through all the gaslighting and explain his record. It'll get tougher as time goes on, but for right now, I think that was the right tenor for that interview.
And you actually said Joe Rogan. I forgot about that. He needs to go on Joe Rogan.
He needs to do Joe Rogan. So does Ron DeSantis. What the hell? Ron needs to go on Joe Rogan and do some stuff that actually gets him in touch with the people who were going to be the ones that elect him.
Well, Joe Rogan will ask the warp speed question. I forgot. He's the fail-safe on this one. I think that's the big deal on that.
Good. And Trump has to answer that. We talked about that earlier too. He's got to answer it. If he doesn't want to own it by using a mea culpa and saying, yeah, I screwed that one up, he needs to at least say, we thought we were doing the right thing at the time, but moving forward, you have my promise. A, there will be no vaccine mandates at the federal level, period. I won't support them at the state level. If I have the power to stop them, I will do it. I will fire the head of the NAID. Whatever he needs to say, whatever he plans to do, he needs to come out and say that. If he doesn't want to say he was wrong, he at least needs to say what he's going to do to fix it. And I would be fine with that.
Yeah.
Because I do that every day in my job. If I screw something up, I can't go around apologizing to everybody, but I can certainly change my path and do the right thing.
Casey, I'm gonna let you go. I think just London. I know that you are a very angry human being at life in general. So I want you to know there's two people here that are not even Trump primary voters. This guy, not a Trump. He didn't even vote for Trump in the last election. I voted for Trump in 2016. I voted for him in 2020. I don't know which way I would go at this point. Just to be clear. So just because somebody says something decent about Trump doesn't mean they're a Trumpster, you blind fucking fool. Okay, Casey, go ahead.
Facts. Jesus, I hate people. When it comes to Trump, the Trump and Rogan, I think is very likely to happen. Trump is actually very close to Dana White. Dana White is very good friends with Joe Rogan. If anything was to happen and Trump was to go on to any independent media, I think it could happen with Joe Rogan, which would be amazing. And after seeing the numbers with Tucker, I think Joe Rogan's sending some flaming emails like, this needs to happen now.
Let's get it.
Let's make it happen. And I look forward to that. He needs to be on those independent media sources. If you look at it, that's why RFK and Vivek are climbing, because they are on those independent sources.
It will be the most watched podcast in history, or listened to podcast in history. Him on Joe Rogan. Trump on Joe Rogan.
It would make Tucker's numbers look small.
Well, in terms of full listens, yes.
Yeah.
And I think he ought to do it in the next debate. He ought to have a primetime meet with Joe Rogan right during the next RNC debate, because we get through two of them, get through September, and then I think we'll weed out some of these also-rans, and then I think he can jump headlong into the next debate.
Joe Rogan won't do that for him. He won't. Joe Rogan doesn't love Trump, so Joe Rogan's not going to play defense, and that's a Trump game. He'll have Trump on. It'll be on Joe Rogan's schedule, but I think Trump should take the opportunity. He's not going to be like, all right, we're going to release the podcast app. That's not Joe Rogan style. He couldn't fucking care. So.
it may be even in his contract with Spotify that he can't.
Maybe.
Because all of his stuff is structured. It's like out perfectly.
Yeah.
So I want to see it happen. I think it would be awesome. Those are the questions Trump needs to address. There's others. Like I've said them numerous times. I don't need to keep going over them. But overall, that left a lot to just be discovered. Hopefully, we get it out of the next one.
Vivek, to wrap it up. So this is the video that, because I constantly am like, why does everybody think that he is,
because people only read headlines.
But this was actually done pretty good. So let's let me see. Let's go.
The funny last name, and what the heck is he doing in the middle of this debate stage? I'll tell you, I'm not a politician.
Of a mill worker's son who dares to defy the odds. The hope of a skinny kid with a funny name who believes that America has a place for him too.
So who is Vivek Ramaswamy?
The Obama plagiarizing Big Pharma CEO.
Who wrote a book less than a year ago in which he compared Trump to sore loser Stacey Abrams, said he respects Pence, and says that Mike Pence did the right thing on January 6th. A man who tweeted out, well said George Soros, and seemingly even parroted his rhetoric on open societies.
A man who took money for his law school from a Soros fellowship, said he did it in a video defending himself, quote, when I didn't have the money.
When I didn't have the money, and it was a merit scholarship.
Yet Fox News reported that he made millions of dollars that year and $1 million every year for a couple years prior. So he lied about that.
A man who made a fortune off of a failed Alzheimer's drug, and a man who just last year wrote a Wall Street Journal op-ed in which he said, the most important step in fighting the COVID-19 pandemic was the distribution of vaccines. That's in 2022. So who is Big Pharma salesman Vivek? Well, he's whoever you want him to be, because just like Obama, he'll say whatever he has to say, even copying Obama, to tell the naive and foolish sheeple what they want to hear. Everyone's giving this guy softball interviews and weak debates. Vivek, if you want a real challenge, come on my channel. I don't buy your shtick at all.
So first, let me just address a question that is on everybody's mind at home tonight. Who the heck is this?
That was the beginning. I know we didn't see it in the beginning. So I respect Anomaly more than most in this industry. So he brought up some interesting points. I've heard the whole thing about the Soros fellowship. Didn't hear the fact that there is evidence that points to the fact that he was worth millions of dollars before that. So that is an issue. I knew his stance on kind of the separation vaccines. I didn't know that it was all the way up until 2022. I think that's a big problem. And he is a guy, I don't care about the Obama mimicking. I mean, I think they remind me a lot of each other in their orator skills. That part didn't really bother me at all because it actually coaxed Chris Christie to say some dumb shit. But I think that this does paints enough of a light just in this short video for me to go, I need to do some more research. Do I still actually put him over Donald Trump? Those videos make me question. I would rather stubborn dickhead Donald, who's willing to divert from his original messaging and not maybe apologize for it, than somebody that is literally just telling me what I want to hear. Again, he's got so much potential because he's young. He can relate to a middle ground, younger market. There's so many positives, but that is rough.
Hey, at least you didn't call him young, articulate, and clean, because that's Joe Biden, and I don't need you mimicking him.
Yeah.
The same stuff was said about Donald Trump in 2015, 2016, and I bought that too. I mean, I saw the videos, him shaking hands with Al Sharpton and yada, 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 yada. And he proved me wrong. So again, like I said earlier, we got to give all these folks an opportunity to show who they really are. But when you say there's certain things I look for, protection of liberty, there's certain things that people can't really fake when they're on the spot and they're thinking quickly. It's really hard to change who you are at your core. I haven't seen Vivek, alter himself much in the appearances I've seen since he's been campaigning. Does that mean it's 100% authentic? Who the hell knows? But man, you can go in anybody's past and find all kinds of stuff. I don't like the Koch machine, the Koch brothers, Charles Koch, and all of his, Americans for Prosperity money and all that stuff. There's a lot I don't like about that. but he offered a big merit scholarship at my law school that I would have taken in a damn heartbeat, along with the job that comes with it, and made a fortune if I had gotten good enough test scores to take.
Would you ever have
So
tweeted what they said, retweeted with, or
I
commented
have
on it?
retweeted what Charles Koch has said in the last 5 years because I worked for his company for a while, and I retweeted something he said about Trump that was bad at the time, that I felt like was bad at the time. And I said, I really want to stand. I want to see what happens with these tariffs because the Koch Industries and Charles Koch are really against tariffs because they do a lot of business overseas, a lot of business with China, Russia, and others. He was against the tariff plans that Donald Trump had. I like people to be able to deal freely. I don't like coercion in the market, period. So tariffs seem to me to be too protectionist and too coercive, and I didn't like them. So I said, I tweeted something Koch said about it, about how it didn't meet the principles of the free market economy principles that conservatives have always had. And I feel like Donald Trump and the history that he had with the issue proved me wrong. But if I was running for president right now and you pull up the tweet where I'm saying I side with Charles Koch over Donald Trump, I'd look like a schmuck. So it's possible. I'm not saying that, that everything
I just think it needs to be answered. I think they need to answer
but
to it. I think
I
Vivek, they came at him a little bit. He answered. He didn't have much time, and he didn't do a full answer. I want a full answer on all of it.
I can guarantee you'll get one thing from him that you won't get from Donald Trump. You're going to get an answer with some humility. You're going to get apologies. You're going to get explanations because he's a lot more articulate, and that's the way his brain works. Donald's doesn't. It doesn't mean he's a better leader. I just want to leave that there.
Yeah, I think that Vivek will. I think if somebody called him on the 2022 statement about vaccines, I think he will go, I was wrong. But he needs to say that. He needs to not spin out of it. So we'll see if that would ever happen. Casey, final thing on Vivek.
So since it's a big topic, he retweeted what George Soros said. What did George Soros say that he retweeted?
I'm gonna look.
I consider Mr. Z from China the most dangerous enemy of open societies in the world.
Is that so wrong?
So can you not retweet what somebody else said if you do agree with just a single statement? What's wrong with it?
Yes, but.
Yes, but.
I can agree with that statement, but when I know who George Soros is, I would simply go, I agree. I wouldn't hit retweet and say George Soros was really onto something here. Like, I would never give. It's like the devil, Lucifer, I'm sure has had some kind of thought process that I agree with. I'm not going to be like, you know what the devil said here, and he was onto something. Or like, hey, Hitler had a couple good points. Here they are. I'm not going to fucking share them on Twitter, bro.
No, but the point is, he said, well said, George Soros, and then in quotes, exactly what I just said. So there is nothing wrong with him retweeting and saying that when he could try to be finding common ground instead of putting somebody down because of a simple thing that is accurate. What is wrong with that? Why do we have to find negativity and a way to put somebody down for anything they do?
I think just he's
now George taking money from the
never said it. Should have just never said it. He should have never shared it.
Why are we nitpicking on that? That's a big deal.
Because it's George Soros. It's like it is like the antithesis that is everything about the modern day us. I don't want to say conservatives, but modern day patriot movement.
You have never agreed with anything Biden has ever said.
No, I never said I didn't, but I would never ever consider sharing. It's like the conversation that Kelly and I have had in the past. Like, there is girls that pop up on my phone. I know to not like their photos.
Hey, now wait a minute. Now that makes you sound insecure. I'm going to tell you. Listen, here's how I look at it. I'm secure enough in what I believe and know and think. I don't care who said it. If it's intelligent and it sounds good, I don't have any problem repeating it. Because anybody who judges me by somebody that I've quoted, I think more about that person than I do about, what was actually said.
So would you ever say there was a post that you found intelligent, intellectual about the world of business or running, whatever, and you were following a gentleman by the name of Jeffrey Epstein, and he had a really good point, and you knew that Jeffrey Epstein was a shitty human being, would you choose to agree with it silently, or would you share it?
Well, let's not use a hypothetical. Let's use a real life example. Robert Kennedy Jr., to me, is a trash human being, but he's saying some really good shit right now that I have pasted, copied, stolen from TikTok, and put up on my Facebook, because he's onto some things right now that I really like.
Why is he a trash? Why do you think he's a trash human being?
Number one, he's got a D after his name.
Some
people may think that's weak, but every single Democrat is really a Democrat. That's the difference between Republicans. Plenty of Republicans are leftists. They're statists. They believe in big government. They believe in doing whatever they can to hold power. I've never known a Democrat, a true dyed-in-the-wool Democrat, especially a Kennedy, who's not at their core, a real Democrat. And he is in so many.
But I don't have a problem with Democrats. I actually think that I'm a 1960s Democrat is the way that I would put my mentality in a lot of ways. I'm a constitutional liberal, I think. So,
but if you compare JFK's stances on a lot of things like government size to Robert Kennedy's, he is to the left of Jack by a lot. And that's just a fact. And more of that'll come out when he gets on the stage with another Democrat, which he'll do eventually. You're not going to see a big difference between the two, I promise you. I've studied this guy for the last 25 years. He sounds really good right now because there's a lot of things that he's really pissed off about. But that doesn't mean that it's changed who he is at his core.
I just can't put him in. I can't put him in the same echelon as a George Soros, and I actually genuinely like him as a human.
I would agree with you there for sure. He's definitely.
I think it was a misstep. Is all I can say. The Vivek.
No, but everybody's taking it way too far. Way too far.
All right, let's wrap this up. That was one other comment that Trump did very well. I forgot to say that he had a statement that made him so much better than Joe Biden in any way, shape, or form. He talked about Democrats. He said Democrats, including those in office, there's many of them that I like, that are good. And he goes specifically, because he had just called out Democrats. And then he goes, and then the Democrats that are the citizens of the United States of America are good people. He had a very unifying statement there that I think was something that we have not once heard from anybody in the Democrat side. Not because RFK has that similar messaging. But nobody on that side, everybody is like, well, there's a couple good Republicans, and there's the MAGA trash. Whereas he made it very clear that all the Democrats are good. Like, he literally goes, all the people are good. I want everybody to, whatever. I would want to be president for the Democrats and the Republicans. That was a very important statement. So I'm going to end on a positive note about Trump, which I'm sure that means I'm a Trumpy, a Trumpster. I probably have a tattoo of him on my left fucking butt cheek. I don't know.
Where's your MAGA hat? Where's your MAGA hat?
Actually, funny thing, I got the big hat company, whatever. They sent me some stuff. They sent me the urinal cakes that have like Kamala Harris and different things on it. So I've got urinal cakes with Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and then the big Make America Great hat again. Again, not a huge Trumpy, but it is a badass, funny looking hat. Anyways, let's wrap up the show. Casey, final words.
Final words is, overall, this is your typical debates. This is your America that you have. Have an open mind, and you don't need to be putting anybody down for having a difference of opinion. Like yesterday, the last few days, I have really been hearing a lot from people because Trump, I believe, needs to be on the stage. I am nitpicking at him because he has said he will not participate until after the primaries. That is my nitpick. But if he will show up in debate, then I'll shut up about it. That's it.
I want to see him in debate 3. Lucas, final words.
So, final word, I do not think all Democrats are trash people. Just want to make that clear. Democrat politicians are certainly, they're capable of being good people with bad ideas. And I think that for the most part, that's probably Robert Kennedy, Tulsi Gabbard, those folks. But they have a lot of good ideas too. And that's the beauty of the marketplace of ideas. People should be able to bring them in freely. They should be able to bring them in openly, and we should be able to debate them, kick them around, and figure out which ones we like and which ones we don't as a country. Because again, like I've said a million times before, there's nowhere to go from here. This is it. We either make this social compact work or we're screwed. And the next step from being screwed is something none of us are going to like. And that includes me, and that includes you too as well. So I want to see these ideas come up, and Trump's, Vivek's, Ron's, Robert Kennedy, all of them. We'll kick them around. We'll decide what's best, and then we do what we do. We vote. But that vote has to have integrity, and that's the most important thing moving forward.
And that is a whole different topic for another day, because I don't know how the hell it's going to have integrity. Quick update. There is none. I talk to Cash maybe once a month now, because he's got very limited amount of time and minutes, and he wants to talk to all 37 of his children, obviously. But I will, as soon as I know anything, as soon as I get a release date or any of that, I know we're in August. We're looking at, as of right now, most likely anywhere from December to February. I will let everybody know, of course. With that said, take it easy tonight, guys. God bless. Share this video. Like this video. That's it. God bless. Have a great night. Take it easy. Lucas, thanks for joining us. Casey.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. It was good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Tell Kaylee I said hi.
I will.
Bye.